silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn, because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. Simply curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn, because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today.
You know, we're going to actually go to school every day this week. That's going to be hard on the kiddos because, you know, they had Martin Luther King Jr. Day last Monday, and we had a day off. And, I mean, and we've had snow days and all these things. So, yeah, you got to go all week, kids. How about that? It's going to be great, though. Again, I'm U-Turn LaVern. This is One Street Over, and I want to introduce y'all to my new friend. We got a couple little things I got to take care of, but I want to say hello to Tami West, who is here with me this morning. Brand new friend.
Brand new.
Brand new.
Literally brand new.
Literally brand new. We have never met before because and Mandy Christensen has mentioned you and your hubby to me a couple of different times. And so she came in the other day, and we're trying. I had been challenged by one of our very loyal listeners that said, and he said, will you please get more people in from White House because they're part of Robertson County. Yeah. And so I'm like, you know, you're absolutely right. We need to be doing this. And we a lot of the times, you know, because Springfield's the county seat, we concentrate on the things happening right in Springfield. But we've got to remember that we've got all these folks scattered around the county. I mean, we really need to be checking in with like Orlinda and different ones like that. And come on, call me, y'all. I just want to, you know, but Mandy's is a wonderful resource for everything White House. And she just can't say enough about you and your husband, Tim, right?
Yes.
And he is what started this, I'll just tell you real quick, and I mentioned this before we got on, I'm learning photography, and I still consider myself very much a novice. I do okay stuff, and but I want to get really good, and your husband's really good.
He is really good.
He's really good, his lighting and all that. So I have a lot of questions, and I need a photographer that I can just, you know, bend their ear and just, that would be, you know, willing to give me some advice and help. Yeah. So, and she's like, you need to talk to Tim West. And then she's like, oh, and you need to meet his wife. You know,
she's so sweet
because you do. I mean, you were a teacher.
I was.
And you're a speaker. You speak all over the country now.
Yes.
And you write. You do all those things. Mm-hmm. And so you and I have a lot in common because I do mostly ministry stuff still. I don't really do any speaking outside of ministry, but I do a lot of ministry stuff. But it's still speaking, and it's something that. It's a networking thing. There's a lot to it. And you even do our PD days for teachers.
Yes.
You said you've got one for Chicago today. You've got to get done.
I do.
So
I have to re-record.
I gotcha.
But you know, I have to. Can I tell you this?
Yes, go right ahead.
So you don't know this. Okay, first of all, to be here with you, Turn LaVern.
Oh, you're so funny.
Having listened to you on the radio,
but you're very kind.
I was like, oh, is that you, Turn LaVern? So yes, you know, to you.
Well, thank you so much.
But here's the really interesting thing. So I don't know if you know that I was in a psych hospital. I don't know if you know that part of my story. That's why I do it in 1995. But the back part of that story is when I did my student teaching. I was in Sumner County, and I was criticized by my cooperating teacher, like telling my university supervisor that I had no initiative, I didn't belong there. And so anyway, then I went to a different classroom, and it kind of all fell apart, and my panic and anxiety were just off the charts. So I quit everything. I eventually finished. And then I got a position at Greenbrier High School.
No.
Yeah. So I walked
My
in.
goodness.
My panic was intense. And one of those things about like anxiety is usually the things you worry about don't happen. So I'm like not sleeping. I go in the classroom the first day, it was fine. And then I fell apart and quit.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
6 months later, the same thing happened in Sumner County at Gallatin High School, only this time I never made it in. So when you told me you were teaching at Greenbrier, I was like, oh God, what a connection.
Yeah.
To bring us together.
What a story too. So see, I didn't know. All Mandy told me is she's a speaker. You'll love her. You'll have tons of stuff to talk about. It's so interesting that you're talking about mental health because NAMI is a group that I'm very passionate about. I need to have them in. I haven't had them in lately, but we dealt. My sweet sister was bipolar, and we dealt with her mental health issues our entire life. And she, bless her heart, she just was such a. I mean, people who don't understand that they just don't have a clue unless you've had to deal with it. And she just she died of cancer in 2019, and I can remember praying for her just complete healing over cancer. And she goes, if I can't be well completely, both with my mental health and cancer, she goes, I'm ready to go see Jesus. Because it's exhausting. People who've never had to experience those mental struggles, they really have if they haven't witnessed somebody dealing with it, they just don't understand the journey at all. So God bless you for being so bold about that and for sharing that, because people need to hear this. I have one of my kids is a clinical counselor, and he's just a rock star. He is so good. He is so good at what he does. But man, he is passionate about being more vocal about our mental health, and it's needed. It's needed.
When that point you just made about your sister saying, if I can't be healed from both, is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Because, of what you said, if people haven't been through it, they don't understand.
Yeah.
But I tell everybody, because mainly mental health is my main topic, but I tell people, so I have, my husband and I have 8 children together, blended. I have 3. And I don't worry per se about my children's physical health. Obviously, I'm concerned, but I don't obsess and worry. But if I know that they are struggling emotionally or mentally, it just kills me, because for me, that pain was far worse than anything else I've ever been through.
Wow.
The anxiety, the panic attacks, it was just worse than anything. So, yeah, I mean, your mind can just make life for some people not worth living. And if you're struggling with that, there is help. It's always okay to ask for help.
That's just it. And we do a lot of talk about kids that, contemplate, have suicidal thoughts and things like that. And we deal with that in Celebrate Recovery. I work with Celebrate Recovery.
Oh, I have a friend that works with.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's an amazing program. But we just, people just, it's just one of those taboo things. I can remember being young and we would hear about somebody that was struggling. And it'd be just, it was just like something you didn't talk about.
No.
And it's just a shame because the people that we lost because we did not talk about it. And so I think that's amazing that that's what you do. So you're talking about how that, so you come in and you do professional development stuff for teachers. I'm assuming that it's about really guarding their mental health as a teacher.
Yeah.
Is that what your topic is then?
The most common topic is mental health, emotions, stress. My doctoral work, which I finished in 2013, was about stress.
Well, thank you, Dr. West. I did not realize you were a doctor. I put doctor in the headline. I respect that. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. If I had my doctor, I'd be like, Dr. Vivio, thank you very much. Doctor,
would you?
Turn. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be Doctor U-turn?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm not. No, I have a.
No, but it would be.
Huh?
It would be.
I would be proud. I mean, I
am.
Yeah, I would really, because I mean that's a lot to do that, and I would love to get my doctoral in ministry study, in ancient studies and things like that. That's my passion, really.
Is there anything you don't want to do?
No, I do music, I do art.
That was like the beginning of our conversation when she was like, I just want to do everything. And I thought, this is my woman.
I do. And I think that's how God created us. It's like, what you want today, Lord? What do we have to do today? We were talking when we came in, we're talking about, I come in, not early. here. And I said, I'm not a procrastinator. I just run out of time every single day. And it's just, I've just got so many things I'm trying to do. And teaching audio video production, I'm having to learn curriculum. I've spent 2-3 hours this weekend just watching videos about things that I want to share with the kids. I'm constantly just watching content, trying to learn something to teach the kids because I want to keep them interested in the program, and it changes every day. Every day.
Well, and I know I'm not interviewing you per se, but I mean, what made you decide you wanted to teach, and how long have you been doing it?
I was a teaching major when I started college in 1980, and I accidentally got bit by radio. I'd been told when we played basketball and they would interview us, we were a really good team. And I wasn't the star, but they were always like, we like to interview LaVern because she sounds good on the radio. And I was like, I never thought about it. But I'd been a public speaker in high school. I always spoke. It was never even a thought that I couldn't get up in front of people and speak. I just did it. If I'd have been a boy, I'd have preached. But they wouldn't let me. We won't talk about that.
That's a whole nother.
That's kind of my passion, really, is trying to fix that in the church.
Ooh, we do have more things.
Yeah, that's trying to fix that in the church and reveal some truth on that. But nonetheless, they mentioned in chapel, I was at Freed-Hardeman Christian State College, and they said, we need people to do news at the college radio station. And it was my first semester there, and I was like, well, they used to say I sounded good on the radio. And I went, and within a couple of months, I'd changed my major. And that's how I ended up in radio. But because I had that foundation in teaching, it's always been in the back of my mind. And, I'm to the point that I don't want to do Nashville radio. I have no desire to deal with that stress anymore. Yeah. And so my husband and I we say we retired into teaching. And so we did.
He teaches too.
He teaches criminal justice up at Springfield. He has never worked. Wow. He has never worked in law enforcement, but he has his master's. So his education allows him to teach that. You can be a career teacher if you have the education to support it or the work experience to support it. So I had the work experience. He had the education. And so, we both retired into teaching. You want to? You want to do it?
No. 10 years was all. It was not.
So you did teach for 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
And like if you're listening or watching out there and you were one of my students, when I say this, it was a horrible time for me.
What did you teach?
I taught biology.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. I teach. I get to play with cameras and video with the kiddos. I mean, that's a subject. That's a real subject.
That is that's a real subject too. But
you know what I mean, though. But it's one of those things that the kids have to take it, and you've got kids. Typically, the kids that are in my class want to be there. Or maybe they just got put in there and then they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I like this. This is interesting. But everybody has to take biology and English and math, and they're just like, oh.
Yeah, but they weren't. It's funny we're talking about this because on my way here, I was talking to my daughter, and we were talking about career paths.
Yeah.
And I was saying, and she knows this, the thing about teaching was that I loved teaching, but I don't want to control other people's behavior and doling out punishments and trying to make
up, all that.
Yeah. So and Lindsay, my daughter, she said, and this was such a powerful thing. She said, "Well, you found like the perfect thing, because teaching is training. It's the same thing. It's just you're with adults." And I was like, most adults behave.
Yeah, exactly.
Not all of them, but
that you're correct though. The controlling the kiddos is probably one of the most frustrating things because you can be moving along and teaching something, you're like, okay, they all got that, and then one kid will go, it has no clue what you're doing because it hasn't heard a word you said, and you're just and trying to figure out number one, and you're sitting there watching them, they're not necessarily doing anything, but just that attention, thing, trying to keep them to where they're paying attention and engaging, and it's an art. I mean, the teachers who do it really, really well, I try to learn from them. Because it's very difficult trying to control. And the phones, oh my goodness. I wish they'd make them leave the phones.
Oh, yeah, I didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, it's terrible. And trying to get them off their phones and stuff. And we put your phone on the door. We have like a thing for them to put their phones up when they come in. And it's just, the policy across Robertson County is no phones. And but trying to enforce that is difficult. And, because it's not consistent across the board. Some teachers are more strict about it than others, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
And I know my kids went to Good Pasture, and they now have a thing where you drop your phone off before you come in the building.
Yeah.
You know, they have like those little packet things you put them in.
Yes.
And
yes.
I can't imagine facilitating that. You know, I
'Cause
guess
that's
maybe
a whole nother
that's a whole nother thing.
responsibility that
Yeah.
someone has to take care
Yeah.
of.
I kind of wonder if it happens in the level of your home room. Everybody just like takes it to your home room, you drop it off, and then that's it. I don't
That
know.
makes sense.
But then the kids, they put fake phones in. They take, oh yeah. I'll have put your phone on in the slots, and they'll all put their phones in. Next thing I know, I'm catching one that's phone's back there on their phone because they put a fake phone in the slot. So I'm like, you little sneaky. I mean, that's one of those things that it is difficult to deal with in the teaching world. But I love it. It is so I love these kids to pieces.
That's
They're
the
my
thing,
kids. I just
right?
love them.
It's your because I would watch other teachers. There's a teacher who started maybe the year after I did, and she's still there. She'll retire. It's her passion.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you have that, it makes a big difference.
Well, and that's the thing. And I'm one of those that I think you can have a lot of passions. I think you do. And I do as well. But so it is definitely one of my passions. But the ministry is probably the biggest passion I have right now. But so with you, though, now how do people get involved with what you're doing? You're speaking and you're teaching people to be speakers. So if I just met you on the elevator, I was like, what do you do? What would you tell me? So how would you unpack that question?
What would be what
Yeah.
I would probably say is I'm a mental health speaker.
Okay. That's
So
awesome.
I do. And I have the most amazing life right now. And I hope that people who are listening and watching will really look at how your life, well, for us, who believe what God brings you together. So during COVID, I lost all of my speaking business. And Tim
Oh, yeah.
lost he was selling hearing aids. Tim, my husband, that's what he was doing, part-time photographer.
Yeah.
So when he lost his business, that's when he went into full-time photography, which he can tell you more about when y'all talk.
Yeah, we're going to have him on later. So,
And I took another job. But anyway, I decided I didn't want to speak anymore. But God brought all these things to me, and it was all mental health. And prior to the pandemic, I was speaking, but I wasn't able to really focus on mental health because nobody wanted that.
right.
Really.
Right.
Well, then everybody wanted it. Well, then a friend of mine that I used to speak with on the speaker circuit, which if you've ever heard of Skill Path or National, they're like public seminar companies. And we met there. She contacted me and said, I'm working for an EAP company, like an employee assistance company, mental health workplace. And she said, do you want to go do a training for us because it's local? It's in East Tennessee. I said, yes. And then she said, do you want to do contract training and do webinars? I said, yes. And then in June of this past year, they asked me to be their full-time training facilitator, which is all virtual from my studio in my home, but I can still have my own speaking clients.
That's wonderful.
Oh, so
Yeah,
it's almost it's not all mental health, but almost everything I do at least is under that umbrella.
Okay. And see, and it's just like you said, it's just one of those things that's so vital right now that everybody understands that we have got to, you know what? I was like, why can't I not hear myself? I turned my mic off to clear my throat. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, so I apologize.
Oh, no,
I was
no.
like, why am I not hearing myself? I was like, turn your mic up, LaVern. No, but again, it's one of those topics, like you said, years ago, people were like, well, we don't want to talk about that. We don't have that in. It's so funny that we have these little lessons that we have to go through every year. You know, the things that we have to the things to keep the kids safe and just different things. And one of them has to do with kids' mental health, you know, that we have to train on every year in the forms of recognizing when they have suicidal thoughts and those kinds of things. But that is one of the big trainings that we do now. And I have a good friend of mine, Dr. Stephanie Evans, who talks a lot about that. And we're going to bring her in. We're trying to put something together, a video, something for the kiddos, just to remind them there's always help. There's always help. And you don't have to suffer with mental health issues. You can find the help you need. That's one thing I'm talking about. My son that's a clinical counselor. He's a busy man.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what's incredible, because it used to be people didn't want to seek that help because there was a stigma.
Right. And there
attached to
still
it.
is, but
Well,
better.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. We're talking with Dr. Tami West. Thank you very much. And she is a speaking trainer. She is a speaking instructor in the avenue of mental health and goes into the schools and does PD days and all the things. And I just think that's fascinating because that's the things that really drive me and I have an interest in. Now, you talk about you do it in the context of school. You know, I'm very ministry driven. Do you do it in the context of churches?
I do.
You know, because the churches really need to talk more about this, I think.
I do. I've had a hard time. You know, sometimes in the past when I've spoken at churches, I don't think they've been open, at least
Yeah.
the ones. I don't know, there's been a little bit of a disconnect. So I'm hoping to go forward in that. Have you heard of mental health first aid?
Yes, to some degree. Well, it's just like that's one of the things I was telling you about my friend, Dr. Stephanie Evans. But she, there's like there's like a little, like a bullet point list of things that are kind of in that same. I would say it's in that same thought pattern of mental health first aid. It's like these are the things you need to look for. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a mental health first aid instructor, so they have an adult, they have a youth, they have a teen.
Okay.
But so it's a day-long course, and you get certified by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. What I'd love to do, and I've made a couple of offers, is to do that in churches, and I wouldn't even charge, except for the materials. You do have to pay to get the certification. It's like $29.
Yeah.
But I would love to be able to do that because we need to be having those conversations in churches. And people don't mean to do what I'm about to say, and you've heard it too, but they don't mean to, or they don't mean to be harmful with it, but just pray more. Just turn it over to Jesus. And in my days of intense suffering, I didn't know how to do that.
Right.
And so that is absolutely part of it. I'm not saying that's a huge part of it, but also having the skills. Mental health first aid is about noticing other people and how to support them.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. The churches are very much, guilty of, well, if you just pray more, you would be okay. You just need to give it to God. Give it to God. Well, it's like I'm doing everything I can to give it to God, but I'm still coming up short. That's why we're supposed to have our community.
Yes.
And I mean, we are not meant to live in isolation. We are meant to live in community. And if the community doesn't understand what I'm going through, they can't be there for me when I need them.
Right.
And that's what I think a lot of people, fall short of. And I just think do you know who Shonda Pierce is? She's a comedian.
Oh, Shonda Pierce.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She, has gone through a lot of this stuff as well. And she's
I don't think I knew that about her.
Oh, yeah. She had, there's a book called Something the Darkness. I can't remember, but it's been many years ago. But she has walked through her own journey with struggles with mental health. That'd be one you'd want. I mean, y'all would
I'd
connect.
love to.
Yeah. Because, I mean, she has been that's the thing, people who are candid about it. I talk a lot about my sister, and I'm not really sure she'd be thrilled with me doing that, but I know she's in heaven. She don't care now. While she was here, she'd probably be like, you better shut up, LaVern. But, I loved her dearly, and but it was a struggle. From the time we were kids, we didn't know what was going on with her.
Yeah.
And that's what I have. I have friends that have. I was thinking. I didn't know you were going to talk about mental health today.
Surprise!
But what's so bizarre is just this morning, just very randomly, I got to thinking about a friend of mine who has a child that's got some struggles. And haven't seen them in years, really. And I just got to thinking about them. I wonder how they're doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I could recognize what the kid was going through in their teens that the parents couldn't, because I had experienced it with my sibling.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know how much you should say, because part of me wanted to say, you do understand you need to get them some mental health. You need to get them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's really hard because I was able to recognize it, that the child was struggling with some stuff. And you just, I'm not, number one, my son will tell me, you're not qualified, mother, shut your mouth. Get them to somebody that can. And he's real big on that, and I'm like, yes, sir. But I just got to thinking about that child and just wondering, because I have no idea where they are. But you know how that just pops in your mind? That's so random that came into my mind today. And here we are talking about it. That is so weird. But it also reinforces the fact that when we see a need, we just need to try to find a way to navigate the waters to help them, in kindness and in love and compassion above all. But what can we do?
And that's when your son said that is the whole premise of Mental Health First Aid. So my youngest biological son, who's 32, and he doesn't mind if I share his story, and he has battled panic attacks like his mom. He's doing really great right now. But he would call me, maybe he's lived away from home for a long time. And I would always say, Michael, you need to do this and you need to do that. And when I took this course, the thing that it really empowers me and empowers other people is it took a lot of pressure off of me, because it's about noticing and then listening and then bridging them to the resources that they need. So with Michael, instead of just telling him what to do, I would start. Now, I would work with him on panic attacks. We would breathe together and things like that. But I would say, well, Michael, what did you do last time this happened, or how? So it's really noticing, listening, and bridging them.
Yeah.
Because I always wanted, not just with Michael, but because of my history, I would want to say something epic to people, right? Like,
I want to fix it.
I can help.
All that codependency, but anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and so many people are fixers out there, but it's not necessary, and it isn't helpful. And I don't want to say it can be harmful, because I don't want people to feel like, I don't want people to feel like they can cause a person,
right,
to go out and do something destructive.
Yeah, I get that. But in the same sense, like you said, somebody, you're in a church and you're struggling. Well, if you just pray more about it, and people will put it as, well, you just don't have enough faith. I've had so many. I just came through a year where I had my knees replaced and my shoulder replaced.
Yeah. Oh.
And a lot of people prayed healing over me, and God decided to heal me through doctors.
Through the surgeon.
Yeah, exactly. But I almost had people who wanted to pray over me, almost like, well, if you had faith enough. It's almost like they're questioning my faith because God didn't miraculously heal my joints and things, and that's not God, I don't think. And I don't know. I just want to be faithful to what he wants. And I do know sometimes he uses doctors to heal you. And, and so there's a place for all of it. But I find that avenue not just in the healing of physical ailments, but very big in the mental, because everybody's like, well, you just need to give it to God. You need, and having witnessed people who tried very hard to give it to God and still struggled. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Well, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there, but so 95 psych hospital. For probably the first 2 years, I was in therapy, trying to grow with God, but I was also taking Zoloft, which, if you all don't know, is an antidepressant, also used to treat anxiety, and Klonopin as needed. And Klonopin is a minor tranquilizer. So my panic attacks were so bad, even the first year that I was teaching, that I remember a day, and my first husband, when I was married before, and I remember getting up and saying, I can't do it. And I got in the car and I left him and my 3 children, and they had no idea what was happening. And it was Klonopin that allowed me to come back down, and then I went to school. So I had not been on medication from probably 97 until the pandemic. And so the pandemic hit 2020, 2021, 2022. My mental health was suffering. We lost so much. We moved. It was just, our children moved back home, and there was some divisiveness. And my good friend, Michelle Kixmiller, who I would love to introduce you to, we taught together. We just went on a retreat, which I don't know if we'll have time to talk about, but she left to become a psych nurse practitioner for youth. So we train teachers together. I talk about adult mental health, and she talks about youth. And so we talk almost every day. And she was like, you need to get more help. So I went back to my doctor. And so I did. I went back on, not Klonopin, but Lexapro. And I was so worried about the stigma, even with what I do, I was so worried about like, how could I have such faith and teach people about this? And I can't figure out a way to get through this. And so I was so rebellious about it. I would start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. And so about a year, maybe 6 months ago, I was like, this is my holistic mental health for now. So therapy, medication, God, prayer, Bible studies. So the phrase that I use for people that we learn in mental health first aid is, I'm tweaking it a little bit, but this is what I would say to you, is for some, for others, for you. You know, for some people with mental health issues, prayer, self-help is sufficient.
Yeah, right.
For others, they need more, and there's a lot of professional help out there. And for you, you need to figure out what you need and get the support to help.
Oh, I love that. For say it again. For some,
for others,
for those, and for yourself.
For you.
Oh, that's really excellent, because that just really.
And you can say it to yourself too.
Yeah.
Sorry, for some, for others, for me.
Yeah. I love that. And it's something that I think this is a surprise, because it's so funny, because I just, as we've set this up, you know, I thought we were going to be talking more about becoming a speaker. And
we can
do that too. We can do that too. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'll take a break here, and maybe we'll reset and do that. But I just find it so bizarre that that's where we went right out of the gate. And I was just thinking about this young person this morning that hasn't been in my mind in forever. And all of a sudden, just in my mind, and I think about, now, why did that come to my head? And, you know, and it's just weird how God does that, you know.
100%.
Weird how God does that. But anyway, we're talking with Dr. Tami West. And what is your doctorate in, you said?
Human development.
Human development. That's very cool. And we're going to continue talking with her about what she does. I'm going to do my break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about what she can do to help you with your speaking and those kinds of things. I have friends of mine that are, you know, they go out and they speak and do all the things, and they travel. It's something that I think I would like to do. I don't even know how to get started. I don't have any problem stepping up and doing ministry stuff. There you go. And it's like, well, what would I even talk about? What would be my topic? Because all I want to do is preach now. I mean, or teach, that kind of stuff, and
that's
do
awesome. I'm so excited.
That's what, and I don't want to say preach. I just want to do ministry driven topics and things. Now I could do some other stuff, and if I had to, I could develop those. But I don't feel that call in my life right now.
Well, then that's not it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So we can talk about that, but I am going to pause for just a second before I go to my break here. And it's all live. Everything's live here. Tammy was like, so we're live. I'm like, yeah, we're live from the moment I turn on the microphone till I exit at 8:00. We are live. But before I get into talking about Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty, I want to remind you that tonight you can see Steve Hemphill, and he is with Active Faith Ministries. This is the spiritual warfare stuff, the private screening of Taking Ground, starring Ben Graham. This is going to be happening at the Madison Church of Christ at 7 p.m. We are so excited. Now, they did a screening at Purpose Life Church on Saturday night. If you were not able to make that one, well, come on. You can join us at the Madison Church of Christ right there at Gallatin and Old Hickory Boulevard. Can't miss it. Just go up on 41. Just drive on into Rivergate. You just Google Madison Church of Christ. You'll be fine. And we'll be there at 7 o'clock. Steve's going to come in and show us a private screening of Taking Ground. And then he's going to take your questions and talk to you just about the ministry work he does in spiritual warfare, which is breathtaking. It is the coolest thing ever. It's one of those things we keep saying, you know, he just sat down to write a book on spiritual warfare, and then God just poured everything else out in front of him. And it just goes back to that. If it's from God, you can't stop it. If it's not from God, you can't make it happen. Well, everything that is so from God, because it's just been rolling, and just one thing after another that he's not sought, that just keep people go, oh, we need to do this. He's like, okay. So it's just a cool story, but you'll love hearing from Steve Hemphill tonight at the Madison Church of Christ for a private screening of Taking Ground. Awesome program, and starring Ben Graham. So I hope you can be there 7 o'clock. I'll be there, and I hope to see you there. But we need to talk about Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty, my friends in the real estate community. Here's the thing. If you need help in real estate, no matter what it is, they can help you, whether it's buying or selling, whatever. Maybe you're wanting to, wanting to get into Robertson County. You know, everybody's wanting to move here. We don't blame you. They specialize in Robertson County properties. While they've got a diverse background and they've been all over, they've been in Robertson County for nearly 30 years. They're cross-Plainians, and so this is their home, just like me. It's their adopted hometown. We're originally, all of us, from Kentucky, so they also know Kentucky and all the intricacies of real estate in Kentucky and what it means if you're going to live in Kentucky, but you're going to work in Tennessee. And that, because Kentucky has an income tax, those kinds of things. They can answer those kinds of questions. Barry came out of a marketing background for nearly 17 years. He was a VP of a media marketing company in Nashville, bringing that expertise to the table. If you're selling property, we've talked all the time about what that brings in, how the pictures are going to pop, the videography is going to pop. They're going to do walkthrough tours, drone footage, all those things he can do. He's an expert at it. She's one of the first in the area to be a seniors real estate specialist. They know their stuff, guys. And if you want to contact them, he is the broker here in Springfield. She is an agent up in White House. They took those 2 offices and brought you a new branch in the Exit Tree about a year ago. They are Exit Prime Realty. And if you want to be mentored into real estate, Rebecca will tell you she's searched the companies, and this is the one that had everything she needed when she decided to go full-time with real estate many years ago. You can contact Becky at 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, or you can go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or buy BUI, robertsoncounty.com. Let them know. At public speaking and all the things. She's on the speaking circuit. Her primary topic is about mental health. She goes in and does PD days, professional development days for teachers about mental health, their mental health, because I get it. People don't understand how stressful teaching is. I have one of my best friends lives up in just very up the road from here, Muriel Barnett, and she taught for 31 years.
Wow.
Just as I was becoming a teacher, she was exiting. And I remember calling her like a couple of days in. And I'm like, you can't take your eyes off of them.
No.
And she just laughed. I was like, it's exhausting. You're like,
and you're performing the
whole
day.
time. And it's like, they leave for lunch and you've got just a few minutes to get your lunch down, and they'll come knocking on the door, and you're like, I got to eat my lunch, and you just that's the only pause in your day, really. That's the only pause in your day. You do have your planning time and all that, but my planning time's always eaten up with 1,000 other things. I never get to sit down and just plan.
Because you want to do everything.
There's that. There's that, or there's something that needs to, there's something that's going on somewhere else in the building that you need to go, see
it's
about.
Not always just planning time.
Yeah. So, but anyway, but it's exhausting, but it's wonderful. But oh my goodness, yes, your mental health. You got to pay attention to your mental health if you're going to be teaching kiddos.
Yes, you do.
Because you need to set an example for them that it's okay not to be okay, and to teach them, here's how we deal with that. Okay, I'm not okay today. We're going to, navigate these waters a little differently.
Because we're not just teaching them a subject; they're watching.
You better believe it. And they pick up so many things. That's one of the things I think my husband and I like so much about being in our 60s and just entering teaching. The kids are like, I told one of the kids the other day, they were wanting to know my background. And I said, well, I started in radio in 1980. And one of the kids went, I can still see his face, because he's like, wow, how old are you? But it's just hysterical. But we're just so ancient to them, but it's something that they can't learn from people except our generation. And so I'm thrilled to be there. It's a lot of fun. I do feel kind of old sometimes, but that's okay. So tell me, to Miss Dr. West, about your speaking business. So you say you have speaking clients. We're going to just kind of jump off the mental health wagon, but and kind of get back into what you do in regards to helping people become public speakers and get out there on the, and get those opportunities to speak to corporations about different things. So how does that work?
So my goal is to transition, because I just turned 60 this year. So within the next 10 years, I want to have a full curriculum of helping other people to become speakers. So currently it's more like individual coaching, and I'm building a program which I'll probably launch in the White House chamber. I was going to do it in April, but that's gotten pushed back a little because of my retreat with my friend Michelle, and we're doing something together. So I'll have to talk to Mandy about that. But what I want to help I think what'll make me different is that, well, let me back up. When I took a speaker course, I did learn a lot, but it was basically things like, you need to value yourself as a speaker and you need to get out there and charge $5,000 for your first speaking engagement. And you need to not sell yourself short, and you need to, and it just, it was very helpful in crafting my topic, but it held me back because no one knew who I was.
Right.
They weren't going to pay me $5,000. And the other, I'm not going to call them mistakes, but the other thing I learned is, which is what I mentioned to you earlier, is that I thought I would be a speaker about anxiety. My speaker reel, I paid like $15,000 to this company to help brand me and create my logos, my colors, and the speaker reel. And I'm not blaming them. This was, 2006 maybe. But my speaker reel was this. I know if you're anxious, it was so depressing. It was like quiet music, and I didn't have any success. So what I want to do is help speakers, first of all, really find out what their passion is, but also understand that there are other things to do to craft your topic before you start. The power of storytelling, which is the thing that I love to do the most. And the way to grow your business may not be what you think it is. For example, when I spoke for Skill Path and national seminars, and Fred Pryor's another one. So if you're thinking about speaking, Google that. It was a very difficult life. For 7 years, I was on the road 3 weeks a month, everywhere, all over the country, speaking in hotel rooms about business topics. It was topics that they already had crafted. But I also went to Australia and the UK and New Zealand and the Caribbean. So the experience that I gained from doing that, oh my gosh. But sometimes speakers would believe that you weren't a real speaker if you were doing that. And I told myself that for the longest time, because I could also do my own clients. So going forward then, learning, for example, I worked for a company for a while in sales, and I offered my clients a free session if they would let me demo the product. And that grew into a whole branch of speaking business. So now the way that I look at speaking business is really multiple branches. Okay, for example, like if you wanted, when you said if you had to, you would craft topics outside of churches. And that's not, if that's, we would talk about, well, what does that look like? And what do you want to talk about? And because I still talk about God. I've never been called out for it before, but I incorporate that. So it's about looking at your passion, your storytelling, the way that you craft your presentation, how you can build your business, not letting people tell you that you can I did make 6 figures last year just from speaking. And that was very exciting to me, but that takes a while.
Right.
And not buying into that junk of you need to, now this is just me. Other people may have had success in other ways, but not thinking that doing something for free devalues you, because I did start in the beginning. One of the pieces of advice someone gave me is to choose an industry and market to those people and say, listen, I'll come for free and you can get video footage, and that really kicked me off. So was that a good start?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that and it's just kind of interesting. I have one of my sister-in-laws, her sister studied communications, and she travels and speaks about communications at different companies and things like that. And I've always been just trying to figure out, well, how did you even get that going? And that's the, I'm fascinated by it, because I mean, there are people who speak, there's a lot of money to be made in it, because companies are always looking for these development days and things like that, where they want to, bring a message to their employees, and just trying to, so how do you, you got your, so as a speaking trainer, do you help people network and get those opportunities and find those open doors and ways to to get into corporate America and travel and speak in other countries and all that? Do you help facilitate that?
So I will connect if I can.
Yeah.
I am part of, and I'll give you some of this information too. I'm part of a group that I'm not as active in anymore, but it's a Nashville Speakers Group.
Yeah.
There is the National Speakers Association, which is a nationwide thing, and then different states we don't have a local one in Nashville. So what I encourage people to do, so I'll brainstorm with them.
Right.
Who are your connections? So for example, when I talked about, I have a background in healthcare.
Right.
So, and my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law was what's called an MSP. It's a medical staff professional. And these are people who work in hospitals,
Right.
clinical settings, and they make sure that practitioners have their credentials and get their continuing service
Right.
hours. Okay. So they have associations in every state. So I wrote to her and she pitched me to the Tennessee Medical Staff Services, and they brought me in. And I think they actually paid me $500, but I didn't ask for a fee. And that network allowed me to then network with all of the other states.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there was that. And then me pitching, telling school nutrition was the industry that I went into with sales. And I offered to do the free speaking. And that opened up. I've spoken at the School Nutrition Association National Conference twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then teachers. So if you have a background in teaching, who do you know? So it's about teaching people how to network and to think out. I hate to use a cliche, but really outside of the box. Like,
Right.
who do I know who will bring me in? And it's also about creating, I have a podcast. So being faithful in what do you want to do to deliver your message outside of live speak? People need to look you up and see,
Content.
yeah, you're on TikTok every week, or you're on Facebook, or you're on LinkedIn, or you do a podcast, or creating content is super important.
Right.
You got to have some credibility. Writing a book is great. But when I wrote my first book, I honestly thought, LaVern, this was in 2006, in my head, I would write this book and the whole world would be coming after me. And didn't.
Oh, I understand. Yes.
It did not happen. But it's still part of that building process.
Yeah, for sure. And I've had those experiences too. You think, I've got this written. It's going to be awesome. And nobody cares. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, now what do I do with that?
But it's still important.
It's foundational. And, because it's like I have this experience now. I've gone through the writing process. I understand it and I understand the significance of it. And yes, sometimes, that's one thing I tell my kids, anything can happen, because they all want to be influencers. They want to be video influencers. And I tell them the reality of the world of audio video, number one, it touches all of us. We're all involved in some way. You've got to have an audio video presence in your speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I said, you've got to understand that the dream can happen, but most of the time the dream comes after years of doing something on the side with something that you're passionate about in the arts while you're still making a living. I've turned so many of my kiddos that come in and they're like, I want to be this in the audio video world. I'm like, that's great. Here's the reality of it. You work as a subcontractor, you got to travel, you do all these things. So are you okay with that? If you're okay with that, then go for it. But if because you very rarely will work for a company, you work independently. And I've had several of them, they're going into be EMTs and different things like that. And they're going to do their art on the side.
Yes.
And I said, and it may take off. I've got friends of mine that I've known that are huge now and it's wonderful for them, but it's like it's the arts and it's difficult. So you got to have these other things going. And I think the same thing can be said. Speaking is an art. It is part of the arts, really, being a public speaker. So if you want to do that, don't quit your day job yet. In other words, you got to make a living and that kind of thing. You got to build it. But I think your service to where you can help people kind of understand, okay, number one, I've got to brand myself as this is what I do. This is my topic. And then knowing how to network, I think, is just the huge side of that. Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, yeah. And what you said was really important, that you watch, for example, American Idol or some show and they make it big immediately. But typically when you see the backstories to these people, they've been doing things for 10, 15 years.
Right.
So it's the same with speaking. And like that experience, I ask people all the time, LaVern, I cannot tell you how many people after speaking over the years have said, oh, this is what I want to do. Can you help me? And I would say, yes, here's my email. And they would never reach out. Or, you know, are you willing to, for example, the Skill Path, the National, the Fred Pryor, those are the years that built my skills.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left there, you have a non-compete. So we would do public seminars, but we would also do on-sites. So Social Security was one of my on-sites. After that, you know, I waited my appropriate year and I contacted all of the people I'd done on-sites for. And then I did work for Social Security after that. I did a mentoring series for them where I went to Baltimore. I wrote mentoring and mentee, and then we recorded in their studio and they sent it out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's because of the networking and keeping up with what I did when I was with these smaller companies.
Such a fun story. I mean, and for me it is, because I love the public speaking world. And I just, and so much of your story too, I just kind of come back on, because you had said that, you know, you got to that place where you had quit speaking, you know, for a while. And then I can't imagine, I had, because
I was tired.
Well, I grew up speaking. I never even thought a thing about it. I'd get up and I would just make speeches, and it just never even fazed me. And it was just something that it just came natural to me. Well, then when my children were born, my twins, I'll never forget it. I had, they wanted me to come to something with the YMCA, and they wanted me to get up and talk to the kiddos. Bring the twins. They were like a year and a half old. And they were just all over the place, and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to take speaking engagements. My kids are little. It's not what I need to be doing right now. And so I quit taking them. And for probably 10 years, I didn't speak. And I remember the first time when I got back up and started speaking again, the anxiety. So I can't imagine with you having, and I had not really struggled necessarily with anxiety prior to that. I mean, especially when speaking. But I can imagine with you knowing you have struggles with that, if you step down from your speaking podium and then going back to it, oh my gosh, that had to have been difficult.
Yeah, you would think. Actually, it's really interesting you say that, but not. My severe anxiety happens currently if I feel like I've screwed up, or if I'm doing something like the mentoring thing with Social Security was a pretty anxious time, because you know sometimes you don't feel worthy.
Yeah.
You know,
Ooh,
like,
am I qualified to do this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was really, really rough.
Yeah.
But, you know, during my decision to step away was just, you know, during the pandemic, it was like, I have worked 16 years to build this business, and it was gone within a matter of weeks.
Wow.
All of my income, and so my negative, falling in a slump person, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start all over. And my friends would say, are you going to go virtual? Are you going to go virtual? And I was like, no, I'm not going virtual. I have to have an audience. I have to connect.
Yeah.
Well, no, I do
virtual.
a lot virtual now and live. And it all came back, and it's all good.
That's good. How long did it take you to recover after the pandemic, to where you felt like you were back?
So I took a job in child nutrition sales in June of 2020. And in 2022, like in October, I started getting all of these requests. So basically, I was with that company for 2 years. And then I had so much speaking that came back that I left.
Yeah.
So 2020, late 2022, 2023.
That you were able to go back into it. That's cool. Yeah. I love this story, and I think it's fun. And it just reminds me, like, I'll talk to my kiddos about how you've been able to build a career around public speaking and those kinds of things. And, you know, it's just, I had a kid last year interested in architecture. And I told him, I said, I had him while we were building the audio video class, I had to teach other subjects. And I had at one point a business communications class. And public speaking is just, if you can do it, guys. And I was talking to this one young man. I said, do you realize, I said, if you could really develop your talents as a speaker, I said, you've got the charisma and everything that you could talk to these architectural agencies about things and about your generation. I said, there's so many things you could talk about. I said, you could absolutely dominate as a public speaker. And their career paths they never even thought about. And he's like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Yes.
different things like that. And I think it's so many kids just don't even have a clue what different career opportunities there are out there. And this is a big one. This is one that and it's fulfilling. I love speaking, and I've never been paid high dollar to speak, but I've had a few speaking engagements that were nice paid gigs, but most of the stuff I do is free. But it's still something that I would love to tap into to some degree. I think I don't know, with all the other things.
Yeah.
With all the other things, I love it.
We'll work together. And the other thing too about like what we're doing here in 2025 is for me also helping speakers craft their virtual. Like, do you like kind of get on camera and become,
you freeze up? Do you look fake? You gotta be natural.
Yeah, and there's so many opportunities. You're right for people, and especially if you're in an industry, it's just like what you've done. You've done this AV radio, and now you're able to do also this other career and teach kids, and I'm sure there's a lot you could teach adults about doing things like this. Their studios, their home studios.
Oh yeah. It's something when you were talking about your home studio, and as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, I want to see your home studio. I want to see your setup, because it's always interesting to me to see how people set things up, because there's so many different. That's why I tell the kids there's so many different ways to do everything.
Well, I think
really
I think they're in my demo reel.
Yeah,
there's me in my home studio.
That's really
it's
cool.
a little different than it was from then.
Well, we're down to just a few minutes. When you sit down, Tammy was like, "We're going to talk for an hour." I'm like, "Oh, well, we don't have any problem talking for an hour. I know that." And then we got off on the mental health stuff. So, in the last few minutes, what do you want to make sure everybody takes away from this conversation?
Well, contact me. I'm sure you'll share my contact information. I love teaching mental health first aid. If you haven't taken a course like that, I would encourage you, because, being able to help support somebody else's mental health without taking it on as your burden is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of your own mental health, not being ashamed. Mental health is holistic. Prayer, if it's medication, if it's counseling, whatever it is, don't be ashamed. Take care of yourself. It's always okay to ask for help. And the speaking thing, I really am developing this. It's a process. So, if you're interested at all, I would love to work with you and help you just develop that.
Okay, so you talk about your contact info. What is the contact info you give out to people who are trying? Just a phone number? Do you have a website? Talk to them about what your contact info is.
So
and then we'll put it up in the comments.
Website is TamiWest.com, TamiWest.com, and everything we've talked about pretty much is on there. Phone number 615-497-7714. So TamiWest.com, 615-497-7714.
Okay, it's like you've been a pro. You do it all twice. That's one thing on radio. You got to give it all twice. That's one of the first things they teach you in broadcasting is always give a number twice, because they're getting a piece of paper down and they're writing.
But I don't have the voice that you do.
Yeah,
I don't have the radio voice.
That's my twang. But thank you very much. And but you sound great, and you just I can imagine. I would love to hear you speak sometime. I know Wendy was telling me, she's like, oh, you ought to hear her speak. She's just awesome. I am that person who loves to go to hear speeches. I love it.
Well,
and
you got to come to the chamber one of these. I've spoke at their women's event, and I'll probably do it again in a couple of years.
Well,
but
be sure and let me know for sure. And I'm so glad to make a new friend. Tell your husband I said hi. I'm looking forward to having him in, talk about his photography and his art. I love all the stuff you are doing. You're all like me. You just want to do it all.
We do. We really do. So thank you for having me.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Tami West. And I'll put all of her contact stuff up in the comments. I remind you again, tonight, come to the Madison Church of Christ. Do not miss your chance to see Steve Hemphill in a private screening of Taking Ground. This is the television show they're spinning off of his ministry. And trust me, this is not something he went out and was trying to make happen. It just got dropped in his lap. It is a cool story, and that just is God, y'all. It's so cool. He's a fascinating guy, and just following God's will. Taking Ground, private screening tonight, starring Ben Graham, who is, I think, the nephew of Billy Graham, I think is what they said, and is on the something to do with the faith board at the White House now. So, it's cool stuff. We want you there tonight, 7 o'clock, Madison Church of Christ. Tomorrow on the one street over, Mayor Billy Vogel will be here. They had the commissioners meeting a week late because of the holiday last week. So tomorrow's Mayor Vogel's day. I hope you'll be here. This is 1100 WSGI. God bless. Have a fabulous day. Thank you again, Tammy.
Thank
God
you.
bless.